Hello everyone, today I'm going to walk you through the rules builder inside Marble. So you can see here that I'm on my outgoing transfer review scenario. I've added trigger conditions to only focus on debit transfers. So let's move on to the rules tab and let's create our first rule. Let's start with a simple one that we'll call amount above threshold. And for here, we'll just select the transaction amount. So let's select this one, amount USD. We're going to use the greater than or equal to symbol and say the threshold is $10,000. Let's add a score modifier. We can say 10 for this one. And here we go. We can add a description, but I won't do it now. We can save this, and that's it. We've built our very first rule, which is the most simple example we can do on Marble. Let's move on to an example a bit different. We create a new rule, and let's call this one transaction in a prohibited country. So Marble gives you the possibility to add lists, as many lists as you want, that will be fixed and constant, that you'll be able to use in each of your rules. So on this one, we're going to select the country of the transaction. And we will say that if the transaction is in, and click inside list and select our already existing prohibited countries, then we want an alert and we want to have a score of 100 here because we strictly don't want any transaction happening in these countries. So this is really simple as well. Maybe we can move on with just another third rule that is quite more complex. So let's call this one fast in, fast out. The goal of this rule is to detect users that receive a high amount of money and then spend it out in a short time lapse. So the first thing we'll need to do here is to compute the amount of outgoing transfer. So we're going to use the sum function. Let's call the variable amount out 2 hours. And let's sum the transaction amount USD. We're going to need to add a few filters. The first one is on user ID. So what we're saying here is that we only want to select transactions for which the user ID is the same as the current transaction's user ID. Then we add our date filter. We only want the last 2 hours. So what we're going to do is select created at is greater than or equal to, and then the date function, transaction created at minus 2 hours. So here we only select transactions that happen in the 2 hours before the triggering transaction. Two more filters we need are direction equal to debit. Here you can see we can use the consent options because our field is an enumeration. And the last one is on the type. We only want transfer transactions. So here we're going to select type equals to, and once again, consent option transfer. So here it's our total amount of outgoing transfers in the last 2 hours. One thing we do not want to forget, because usually we haven't ingested the triggering transaction yet. So we're going to open brackets and add the amount of the triggering transaction itself. So there we are. We need to compare this to the amount of incoming transfers in the last 2 hours. So here we're going to say greater than or equal to, and we're going to suppose that we want to compare this to 80% of the incoming transfers. So if the user has spent more than 80% of what he's received in the last 2 hours, then we have an alert. So let's open brackets again. Here we can write 0.8 for 80% times, and here one interesting feature is that we can copy and paste a function we created so that we don't have to write it all over again. So let's just change the name, amount in, and the direction. Instead of debit, we get credit. So this is the first part of the rule. One last thing we want to add here to avoid having too many false positives. We're going to copy this amount in again, paste it, and say that we want to have this alert triggered only for users that have received at least $1,000 in the last 2 hours. And there we are.